The sky was not the same anymore. The city that once glowed with tall towers and shining streets was now covered in smoke and silence. Broken machines lay scattered across the roads, and the air was heavy with the smell of burning metal. People had fled long ago, leaving behind only ruins. Yet in that place of shadows, a human soldier walked alone. His armor was scratched, his face was tired, but his eyes still carried a fire that nothing could put out. He had survived battles that had taken stronger men down. He had seen creatures tear through armies like paper, and he had stood when others ran. But on this day, something different caught his attention. It was not the enemy's roar or the sound of weapons. It was a voice, soft and broken, carried through the wind. He turned his head and saw her. She stood at the edge of the ruins, her skin glowing faintly under the dim light. Her hair shone in colors not found on Earth, and her eyes were wide with fear. She was not human. She was one of them, an alien girl, but she looked nothing like the enemies he had fought. She looked lost, fragile, and young, as if the world around her had swallowed everything she once knew. The human kept his hand near his weapon, unsure if this was a trap, yet she didn't move to attack. Instead, she took one unsteady step toward him. Her lips parted, and words came out, broken but clear enough for him to understand. She was asking for help. For a moment, he almost laughed. He had been trained to kill her kind, not guide them. The war had left no space for trust. But something in her eyes made him pause. They were not the eyes of a soldier or a predator. They were the eyes of someone who had lost her way in a world she could no longer control. He lowered his weapon slowly and raised his hand, pointing toward the broken streets. She looked at where he pointed, then back at him, uncertain. She didn't understand the path. She needed someone to walk with her, someone to guide her through the ruins. The human sighed, knowing what this meant. If anyone from his command saw him helping her, they would call him a traitor. If any alien soldiers saw him with her, they would call him a fool. Yet in the silence of the ruined city, there was no one else. Just him and the lost alien girl. He nodded once and started walking. She hesitated, then followed, her steps light and careful. The sound of her movements was almost like a whisper against the broken stones. Together, they moved deeper into the ruins. Every shadow seemed alive. Every sound carried danger. The human kept his hand ready on his rifle, scanning the corners, watching for threats. The girl stayed close, her glowing presence almost too bright in the dark city. At times he wanted to tell her to dim herself, to hide. But then he noticed something. Her glow, though dangerous, also revealed hidden paths. Cracks in the ground, traps left behind, broken walls ready to collapse. Without her light, he might have walked into death. As they moved, she tried to speak again. Her words were broken, mixing her language with his. But the human understood enough. She had been separated from her people during the chaos. She had wandered alone, chased by both soldiers and scavengers. She had no one left, no place to go. That was why she had called to him, even though he was supposed to be her enemy. The human kept silent, listening but not answering. His heart was heavy with thoughts he didn't want to face. The war had taken everything from him too, his friends, his home, his future. Maybe that was why he couldn't leave her behind. Maybe helping her was not about her at all. Maybe it was about finding a reason to keep walking himself. The city opened up into a wide plaza. Broken statues and shattered lights scattered across the ground. The human raised his hand, signaling her to stop. He scanned the area carefully, then moved forward. Suddenly, he froze. In the middle of the plaza lay something shining. Untouched by dust or fire. It was a card. Not ordinary, not military. It glowed faintly, with strange marks across its surface. The alien girl gasped softly when she saw it. Her eyes widened, and for the first time since he met her, her fear faded into something else. Recognition. She stepped forward quickly, kneeling near the card. She touched it gently, then looked back at him. Her expression had changed. No longer lost, no longer broken. She seemed to understand something he could not. Slowly she picked it up and held it out to him. The human frowned. He pointed at himself, confused. She nodded firmly, pressing the card into his hand. The glow from it spread through his fingers, cold and strange, as if it carried secrets not meant for his kind. He looked at her, but she gave no answer. Only silence and eyes that now carried a spark of hope. And so, in the ruins of war, a human guided a lost alien girl. And in return, she gave him something far more than thanks. She gave him a key to a mystery he did not yet understand. Asterisk, the human soldier held the glowing card tightly in his hand. Its surface was smooth, yet the strange pattern seemed to shift under his touch. He had seen alien tech before, but nothing like this. Most devices were cold, heavy, and built for war. This card felt alive, like it was pulsing faintly with hidden energy. The alien girl stood beside him, watching him carefully. Her eyes, large and bright, followed every small move he made. It was clear she wanted him to keep it. The way she had pressed it into his hand was not a request. It was a choice she had made, one that seemed important to her people. The human frowned. He did not understand why she would trust him with something so valuable. He was not her friend, not her ally. He was the enemy. Yet here she was, looking at him as if he was the only one left who could carry this weight. "Why me?" he muttered under his breath. She tilted her head, not understanding his words. The ruins around them creaked with the sound of shifting metal. The plaza was too open, too exposed. He needed to move them before someone spotted them. He nodded toward a half-broken tower nearby and began walking. The girl followed closely, her glow lighting their path. Inside the tower, broken stairs twisted upward into the shadows. He motioned for her to stay quiet and started climbing. She moved with surprising grace, her steps almost soundless despite the debris. Together, they reached a wide room with shattered windows that looked over the city. From there, he could see the horizon. Fires still burned in the distance, and strange shapes moved between the towers. The girl stood near the window, staring out with sadness. Her hand touched the glass lightly, as if she was trying to reach something far away. The human watched her in silence. She was young, maybe not much older than a human teenager, yet she carried herself with a quiet strength. There was something noble about her, something that didn't fit with the idea of a simple wanderer. He finally broke the silence. "What is this card?" he asked, holding it up. She turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. She tried to speak, but her words were broken. Still he understood fragments, words like key, hidden, safe. It was a key to something, perhaps a place or a secret. The human sighed. He had no time for riddles. The war had made every step dangerous, and carrying alien tech was asking for trouble. Yet, deep down, he felt something shift inside him. He had been walking this ruined world without purpose. Now, holding the card, he wondered if fate had just placed a purpose in his hand. The girl stepped closer, her gaze fixed on him. She reached out slowly, touching the edge of his armor. It was not a threat, not a test. It was trust. She wanted him to keep going, to guide her further, and to carry the card with him. He nodded once. "All right. But if we're going to do this, you stay close." She gave a small nod in return. Hours passed as they moved through the ruins. The city was not silent anymore. Strange machines roamed the streets, scanning for life. Broken drones drifted overhead, their red eyes glowing faintly. The human kept low, guiding the girl through alleys and broken tunnels. She followed without complaint, though at times she would glance at him with curiosity. She seemed fascinated by him. By his armor, by the way he moved, by the way he kept scanning for threats. For her, perhaps a human soldier was something rare, maybe even dangerous. Yet she walked beside him with no fear. At one point, they reached the edge of a collapsed bridge. The gap was wide, too wide for him to cross with his heavy armor. He stopped, scanning for another path. The girl, however, stepped forward. Her glow grew brighter, and she moved with unexpected speed. With a leap that seemed impossible for someone so fragile, she crossed the gap and landed lightly on the other side. She turned back to him, waiting. He raised an eyebrow under his helmet. Clearly, she was not as helpless as she looked. "Show off," he muttered, before finding a way down into the rubble and climbing back up. It took longer, but he reached her side eventually. She smiled faintly, as if amused by his struggle. For a moment, he almost smiled back. Night began to fall. The city grew darker, but her glow lit their path. They found shelter in an old underground station, its walls cracked and covered in dust. The human set his rifle nearby and sat against a wall. She sat across from him, watching quietly. The silence stretched until he finally spoke. "You're not just lost, are you? You know more than you're saying." She lowered her head slightly, then lifted the card with her hands. She pointed at him, then at herself, then at the ceiling above them, where the stars would have been if the smoke had cleared. Her meaning was simple. This was not about just finding her way home. This was about something bigger. The human felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever this card was, whatever it unlocked, it was something tied to both of them now. And if that was true, then his life had just changed in ways he could not yet imagine. As the night pressed down, the human soldier closed his eyes for a moment, holding the card close. Beside him, the alien girl sat quietly, her glow soft like a lantern in the dark. Two beings from different worlds, sitting together in the ruins of war, tied by something neither fully understood, and though he would never admit it out loud. For the first time in a long time, the human did not feel entirely alone. The underground station was cold and damp, its silence broken only by the distant drip of water. The human soldier woke before the alien girl, his training keeping him alert even in broken sleep. He checked his rifle, scanned the shadows, then glanced at her. She was curled near the wall, glowing faintly even as she rested. Her breathing was soft, almost like a song. For a moment, he forgot she was supposed to be his enemy. She looked too young, too fragile, as if the world outside could crush her in an instant. He reached into his pack and pulled out a ration bar. It was dry, tasteless, but it was food. When she stirred awake, he broke it in half and offered it to her. She blinked at him, unsure at first, then reached out with careful hands. She sniffed it, nibbled, then gave a small smile. It wasn't much, but it was a connection. The human leaned back against the wall. "So you can eat human food. That's good. Makes things easier." She tilted her head, catching only part of his words, but she understood his tone. She gave a small nod, chewing slowly. When they finished, the human stood in motion for her to follow. The card was still in his pocket, its glow faint but steady. He didn't know where it led, but something in him said they couldn't stay still for long. The war would find them if they did. As they climbed out of the underground station, the girl suddenly froze. Her ears twitched, sharper than his. She grabbed his arm, pulling him back into the shadows. The human stiffened, then heard it, two voices. A squad of alien soldiers marched through the ruins. Their armor was dark, their weapons ready. The girl's eyes filled with fear, and she pressed closer to the wall, trying to hide her glow. The human quickly covered her with his cloak, pulling her against him to dim her light. The soldiers passed, their steps heavy, their voices sharp. He didn't understand their words, but their tone was harsh. They were hunting. Maybe for him, maybe for her, maybe for both. Only when the footsteps faded did the girl relax. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with gratitude. He let out a quiet breath and released her, stepping back. "Stay close," he whispered. She didn't need to understand the words. She understood the meaning. They moved again, deeper into the ruins. The human guided her through collapsed streets. using his knowledge of war zones to avoid patrols. She, in return, warned him of hidden dangers, unstable walls, poisoned air vents, traps left behind by both sides. Slowly, they began to work as one, each watching for what the other could not see. By midday, they reached the remains of a giant tower. Its base was shattered, but its upper level still stood against the gray sky. The girl pointed toward it, her voice urgent. She spoke quickly, mixing her language with broken human words. He caught enough to understand: the card, the tower. They were connected. The human hesitated. Towers meant danger. Higher ground was always watched, always targeted. But something in her eyes told him this was important. She was no longer just lost. She was searching. They entered the tower cautiously, climbing broken staircases and pushing past debris. The air grew colder as they ascended, and the silence felt heavier. The girl stayed close, her glow guiding the way. On the 50th floor, they reached a sealed door. Unlike the rest of the ruins, this door was untouched. No rust, no damage. Its surface was smooth, glowing faintly with the same patterns as the card. The human's breath caught. He pulled the card from his pocket. The girl's eyes widened, urging him forward. Slowly he placed the card against the door. The patterns lit up, spreading like veins of light across the surface. The door hummed, then opened with a deep, low sound. Inside was not what he expected. The room was clean, untouched by war. Strange machines hummed softly, their lights blinking in patterns he could not read. In the center stood a pedestal, empty but glowing faintly. The girl stepped inside first, her eyes shining with awe. She moved with familiarity, as if she had been here before. She pointed at the pedestal, then at the card. The human understood. He placed the card onto the pedestal. Immediately, the room came alive. Lights flickered, machines whirred, and a projection appeared above the pedestal. It was a map, vast, glowing, filled with stars and pathways. The human stared, his mouth dry. This wasn't just a map of the city. It was a map of worlds. The girl looked at him, her face filled with hope. She spoke softly, her words carrying meaning even without translation. This was what she had been searching for. This was why she had needed him. The human felt a chill. Whatever this map was, it was not meant for just anyone. And now somehow it belonged to him too. He looked at the girl, then at the glowing stars. Before him, for the first time he realized that guiding her through the ruins had been only the beginning. The true path was just opening. The star map hovered above the pedestal, its lights filling the room with a soft glow. The human soldier stared at it, hardly believing what he was seeing. Stars, planets, and paths stretched out like veins of light across the galaxy. Some points glowed brighter than others, pulsing faintly as if alive. The alien girl reached up, with trembling hands, touching the light with her fingers. The map responded, shifting as if it recognized her. Pathways opened, revealing more detailed systems, coordinates, strange markers he could not understand. The human stepped closer, his armor creaking softly. "What is this?" he whispered, though he knew she couldn't answer in his language. Still, she tried. She pointed at the brightest star, then at herself, then at him. Her words were broken, but filled with urgency. He caught fragments: home, war, safe, key. She was showing him that the map was not just directions. It was a guide to something greater, something hidden that her people had lost in the chaos of war. And somehow the card he carried had been the only way to unlock it. The human studied her carefully. She was no ordinary girl. Her knowledge, the way she handled the map, the importance of the card, it all pointed to something more. She wasn't just lost. She was connected to the secret. Before he could ask more, the ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the machines in the room flickered. The girl gasped, pulling at his arm. She pointed toward the window, her face pale. The human rushed to the window and looked out. Across the city, lights flared as enemy patrols moved closer. They weren't random squads this time. They were coordinated, advancing toward the tower with speed. His stomach tightened. The card's activation had not gone unnoticed. Someone somewhere had felt the signal. And now they were coming. He turned back to the girl. "We have to move." She nodded quickly, grabbing his hand without hesitation. Together, they left the room, the star map fading behind them as the door sealed shut once more. But the weight of what they had seen stayed heavy in his mind. The descent was tense. Every creak of the building felt like a warning. The girl stayed. Closer glowed dimmer now, as if she was trying to hide herself. The human's rifle was ready, his senses sharp. When they reached the ground floor, they heard at voices, armored footsteps, the unmistakable hum of alien weapons. The enemy had already surrounded the tower. The human pulled the girl into the shadows of the rubble. He studied the patrols carefully, counting numbers, watching their movement. There were too many to fight. Stealth was the only way out. He motioned for her to stay low. They crawled through the broken walls, slipping past patrols, moving only. When the soldiers turned their backs, at one point, a beam of light swept dangerously close, nearly catching them. The girl trembled, but the human covered her with his cloak again, steady and calm. His heartbeat never betrayed his fear. Step by step, they moved until they reached the edge of the ruins. There, hidden beneath fallen stone, was an old service tunnel. The human shoved debris aside and pulled her inside. The tunnel was dark, but her glow lit the way. The walls dripped with moisture, and the air smelled of rust and earth. It stretched endlessly, winding beneath the ruined city like forgotten veins. They walked in silence until finally the girl spoke again. She gestured toward the card, then at the tunnel walls, and finally upward. Her words were broken, but the meaning was clear enough. The map showed more than just stars. It showed hidden routes, safe paths, places untouched by the war. The human tightened his grip on the card. He had thought it was just an alien trinket, a strange piece of tech. But now he realized it might be the one thing that could change the tide of everything. Asterisk. They walked for hours, their steps echoing through the empty tunnel. At last, they reached a large chamber where the tunnel split into 3 paths. The human stopped, scanning each one. The girl, however, stepped forward, her glow brightening. She closed her eyes, listening to something only she could hear. Then she pointed firmly to the left path. He didn't question her. By now, he trusted her sense more than his own. They followed her lead, moving deeper. As they went, the tunnel opened into a cavern. The ceiling stretched high above, filled with glowing crystals that bathed the chamber in soft light. For the first time since the war began, the human felt like he had stepped into a place untouched by destruction. The girl looked around with wide eyes, her face filled with wonder. She moved toward the crystals, touching one gently. It glowed brighter. At her touch, as if responding to her presence, the human watched quietly. She belonged to this place in a way he never could. She was tied to its secrets, its light, its hope. But then he noticed something else. In the far corner of the cavern stood a structure ancient, alien, yet still intact. Its doors were sealed, but its surface was covered in the same glowing marks as the card. The girl turned to him, her expression serious. She pointed at the structure, then at the card. The human exhaled slowly. He knew what she was asking. The card was more than just a map. It was a key. And this place was the next step. He looked at her, then at the structure. For the first time, he wondered if guiding her had not just been chance. Perhaps, without knowing it, he had been walking toward this moment all along. The cavern was silent, except for the faint hum that seemed to come from the crystals themselves. The human soldier stood still, rifle in one hand, the glowing keycard in the other. His eyes stayed on the alien structure ahead. It was unlike anything else in the ruins. While the city above lay broken and dead, this place still lived. Its surface shimmered faintly, covered in patterns that pulsed with hidden energy. The alien girl stepped closer, her glow responding to the structure's markings. The lights brightened as she approached, as if welcoming her home. She placed her hand gently on the door, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the markings shifted, glowing brighter, and the door let out a low, deep sound. She turned to him, her eyes steady. She pointed at the KEYC, Aradi. The human hesitated. He looked at the card, then at her. Every step of this journey had pulled him deeper into a mystery he didn't understand. He was a soldier, not a chosen one, not a keeper of alien secrets. And yet, she was giving him the choice. He walked forward and pressed the card against the door. The pattern spread like waves, lighting up the entire surface. The ground trembled, and slowly the doors parted. Inside, the chamber glowed with soft blue light. Machines hummed quietly, their designs smooth and elegant. Unlike the war machines he had seen, these were not built for destruction. They were old, ancient, but still alive. In the center of the room stood a tall pillar. At its top hovered a sphere of light, shifting and swirling as if it contained entire worlds inside. The girl's eyes widened, and she whispered words he couldn't fully understand. Still, he caught one clear fragment. Heart. The human stepped closer, studying the sphere. It pulsed faintly, each beat sending a wave of warmth through the air. He reached out, but stopped when the girl raised her hand. She stepped forward herself, bowing her head slightly, then placed her hands on the sphere. The light flared, filling the chamber with a brilliant glow. The machines around them came alive, their hum growing louder. Symbols danced across the walls, telling a story too old for him to follow. The girl turned to him, her face lit with both fear and hope. She gestured for him to place his hand on the sphere with hers. He shook his head. I'm human. This isn't meant for me. But she insisted, her voice rising with urgency. She pressed her hand against his chest, over his heart, then pointed again at the sphere. The meaning was clear. This was not about species. It was about trust. The human exhaled slowly, then placed his hand beside hers. The sphere reacted instantly. Light surged around them, wrapping both in a cocoon of energy. Images flooded his mind. Planets, stars, wars fought long ago, civilizations rising and falling. He saw her people, once proud and vast, now scattered and broken. He saw humans too, struggling, fighting, surviving against impossible odds. And then he saw something else. A connection. Not between enemies, not between conquerors and conquered, but between two lives standing side by side. The glow faded slowly, leaving him gasping for breath. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, her chest rising fast. She spoke softly, and, though her words were still broken, he understood enough. The sphere had accepted them both. The card was not only a key, it was a test. A test of unity, of trust between two different kinds. The human stepped back, trying to steady himself. So, this is why you needed me. She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. She reached out, placing her hand gently on his arm. For the first time since he met her, she did not look lost. She looked found, but their moment did not last. The ground above rumbled with heavy movement. The soldiers who had followed them through the ruins were drawing closer. Their voices echoed faintly, sharp and commanding. The human tightened his grip on his rifle. He looked around the chamber, searching for defenses, but there were none. This place was not built for war. It was built for something greater. The girl touched the sphere again, and suddenly the walls of the chamber shifted. Hidden panels opened, revealing passages that spread outward into the cavern. Escape routes, safe paths. The map had not lied. She turned to him quickly, gesturing for them to move, but before he could follow, the sphere pulsed once more. A beam of light shot into the human's chest, embedding a faint mark across his armor. He staggered, but the pain faded quickly. When he looked down, the mark glowed faintly before sinking into his skin beneath the armor. He froze, unsure of what had just happened. The girl stared at him, awe in her eyes. She spoke a single word with meaning he did not need translated. Chosen. The human's throat tightened. He had not asked for this. He was just a soldier, lost in a war that had stolen everything. But now, with the card, the sphere, and the alien girl by his side, he carried something far heavier than survival. He carried destiny. The rumble above grew louder. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the human soldier knew their time was almost gone. The alien patrols had tracked them this far, and once they reached the cavern, there would be no chance to fight or hide. The alien girl pulled at his arm, urging him toward one of the hidden passages. Her glow flickered with urgency, her face tense but not afraid. She trusted him now, and that trust weighed heavier on him than the rifle in his hands. They rushed into the narrow passage, the walls glowing faintly as if guiding their way. The tunnels wound deep, splitting into multiple paths, but every time they reached a fork, the walls themselves lit the correct way. The sphere had marked them both, and now the cavern seemed to recognize them. The girl kept glancing at him, her eyes full of questions she couldn't form in his language. But she didn't need to. He understood. The keycard, the sphere, the mark burned into his skin. These things were not just relics. They were a message that survival was not about one species standing over another. It was about standing together. At last, they reached the end of the passage. A large door blocked their way, but as he stepped forward, the mark on his chest flared to life. The door opened slowly, revealing a wide platform overlooking the ruined city. The human froze when he saw them. Across the broken rooftops, squads of alien soldiers were advancing, their weapons ready. They had been waiting, the girl gasped, pulling closer to him. He raised his rifle, scanning the soldiers. There were too many. Even with all his training, he couldn't fight them all. Then the mark on his chest pulsed again. The ground beneath. The platform shook, and from the depths of the cavern, something rose. At first, it was only light, then metal, then form. A massive construct, ancient and powerful, lifted itself from the ground. It wasn't like the machines of war he had seen before. It was older, smoother, built with purpose beyond destruction. Its eyes glowed with the same patterns as the sphere. The alien soldiers stopped, their advance faltering as they saw it. Fear rippled through their ranks. The girl stepped forward, raising her hands. Her voice rang out, strong and clear, no longer broken. She spoke words her people would understand, words filled with authority. The soldiers hesitated, lowering their weapons. The human watched in silence. She was no lost girl. She was someone of importance, someone tied to this ancient place. Perhaps royalty, perhaps a guardian's heir. Whatever she was, her people had been searching for her. Slowly, the soldiers knelt. The girl turned to the human, her eyes shining with tears. She stepped close and pressed the keycard back into his hand. Then she touched the glowing mark on his chest. She spoke softly, and though her words were foreign, he understood the meaning. He had not only guided her out of ruins, he had become part of something greater, part of a bond between their kinds. The human lowered his rifle. For the first time in years, he felt something stronger than war. He felt hope. The construct lowered itself again, its glow fading into silence. The soldiers rose, but instead of attacking, they parted to create a path for her. A path for him. The girl reached for his hand. Her grip was soft but firm, filled with trust. Together, they stepped down from the platform, walking side by side through the line of soldiers. No one raised a weapon. No one dared. As they walked into the open streets of the broken city, the human realized the truth. The card had not been A gift of thanks. It had been a test of character. The girl had chosen him not because he was the strongest, but because he had guided her when no one else would. And in that choice, she had unlocked something far greater than a map or a secret. She had unlocked the future. The city still lay in ruins. The war still raged in other places, but in that moment, one soldier and one alien girl had changed the course of everything. Not with fire or steel, but with trust. The human tightened his grip on the card. He did not know what paths lay ahead, what worlds the map would show, or what battles still waited. But he knew this. He would not face them alone. Beside him, the alien girl smiled, her glow bright against the darkness. She had been lost once, but now she had found her way. And together, they carried a light strong enough to guide not just themselves, but perhaps entire worlds.